Another Roll for Crit podcast, the official podcast for rollforcrit.com. Watch, shop, play. I'm Will Keeler.
I'm Jonathan Estes, and we have a ton of big stuff to talk about today. I know we say that every week, but this time I really mean it. Every other time has been a lie.
Board games just we never stop. They're always no. As soon as the podcast is done, there's going to be 10 more new big items.
It's crazy. Actually, our first big story came in just after our last podcast. We're a little late with it. But before we get into that, I did want to talk about, we did a review for the Onirim app maybe about a month ago now. Time flies. Mm-hmm. And they just put out their first expansion for it, which if you have an Asmodee account and the app is free, it's the Glyphs, and I think we both got a chance to actually try it.
Yes.
Basically the difference is it adds some more cards into the deck. You now need to get 3 doors
of each color, but you have more cards to help you get there.
Right.
And I think it actually turned out to be a lot of fun because it gives you more tools to play with in the end. So even though the goal is harder technically, it's not, because the glyph card that they add is a new symbol, so when you need to play 3 different symbols, it helps there. Mm-hmm. 2, if you discard it, you get to look at the top 5 cards. If there's a door there, you unlock it.
Immediately, no questions asked.
And you put the other cards on the bottom of your deck. So if there's a nightmare coming up, you're gone.
Yeah, so it is really nice, and it feels nice. And it makes sense why they added a 3rd door, because if you still only needed 2, it would be way too easy.
Right.
It's a really good balance, so I'm really glad they added that. And it said there's more to come, so I'm curious how many more will be free, or if this just one is like the first taste, and then they're going to keep charging you for more. You did need to make an Asmodee account, so that's sort of how they're getting you a little bit. If you didn't have one, now they have you in their system, so they can target you forever.
The system, man.
So that's cool. Again, we like the Onirim app a lot. Check that out. Now, the big news, the big old news for today is the Spiel de Jahres nominees that were announced for the year 2017. Mm-hmm. We've got them for you right here, the Spiels and the Jahres. We're going to be talking about mainly the big 3 nominees. There's some runners-up. If there's any you wanted to talk about these thoughts were interesting, we can. But mainly the big 3. So you can see them behind us. They are ones that, as of this recording, have not been released in America yet. I don't think any of these have, but within the next few months, you're going to start to see
I'm sure
them.
As soon as they get that nominee,
they're going to be pushing it, yeah. So the first one is King Domino, and that's Bruno Cathala designed, the guy who did Abyss and 5 Tribes and a bunch of others. Very, very popular, big designer. And that's like you're all lords trying to expand your kingdoms against each other. Yeah.
Next up, and this is the only one I heard of these 3, is Magic Maze. You are actually a group of the classic adventurers, but you lost all your loot. So you are going to the Magic Maze Mall and looting it without getting caught.
Yeah.
So it's a cooperative game, apparently, not turn-based, like live action. I'm totally blanking on the word.
Real time.
Real time, thank you.
Yep.
And pretty much you have to map up the mall, find which stores you'll want to do, find the exits, and then go for it. Because that's how you're going to get out, by robbing all the stores at the same time.
Yeah, so that one sounds really neat.
I hope it comes with the little sound box like the old mall game you used to play as a kid, your sisters.
Don't tell them I used to play that. It's going to give people the wrong idea. And then the final one is, I'm gonna say it for you right now, Wettlauf nach El Dorado.
Well, you got the last part.
Sure, yeah, I got that one. And this is a Rainer Knizia game, deck building game with, as you can see from the picture, sort of a Indiana Jones-esque theme to it. That I've heard is kind of like Dominion-ish, but I don't know much about it beyond that.
Deck building, El Dorado, you got me.
You got him. You got him. So those are the 3 big ones. As you said, I had never heard of any of these. We definitely haven't played these because we really are limited to what's available in America for the most part. At least in this past year, we have been. But it's from the sounds of it, Magic Maze definitely sounds like the most fun to me. The other 2 kind of sound like, I don't know. Well, their themes aren't grabbing me. But
for the 3, I think, first of all, the idea of the mall, it sounds hilarious. I think that's part of the reason that it draws. El Dorado, I'm curious because, I'm always biased towards deck building games. But I understand that it's one of those mechanisms that when you played, like you said, you played when you played them all. So for a deck building game to get a nominee, I'm very curious.
What it adds, what it brings to the table that's new, yeah.
And I do feel the other two, because, I mean, Magic Maze is, I think, actually has more English rules and stuff to compare to the other two. We might just, because the descriptions we don't know as much.
No, I mean, that's absolutely true. I'm just going on first impressions. I don't know anything about these games, but the idea of the cooperative and real-time are two elements that make me much more intrigued by it. Then we also have the 3 nominees for the Kennerspiel des Jahres, which is the more complicated award for like bigger, slightly heavier games.
And these we do know all of them.
I mean, we haven't played.
You didn't know
about Raiders.
I knew of.
At any rate, don't speak for me.
I'm sorry.
First up, you can see we've got Exit the Game, which is like an escape room type game. Then there's Raiders of the North Sea, which is a worker placement game with Vikings, and that was just announced that Renegade Game Studios is going to be publishing that sometime next month, I believe, in June. And then Terraforming Mars, that's the one most people probably are familiar with. It has been released for a little while now. It's had a lot of press.
Yeah.
So that makes it. I will say Terraforming Mars, even for this category, seems heavy-ish for them. Usually, like Dominion, for example, was their start into the Kennerspiel Awards, and that's, I feel, much later than Terraforming Mars.
Well, I think that was also really...
It was a long time ago.
It defined deck building, so that was back when that mechanic was not even, like...
Perhaps.
So it seems simple now, but...
Perhaps. The other thing I've heard is that Exit is one of those kind of you play it once and you're done games, which is maybe a knock against it or not, depending on how much fun it is.
Well, remember that these most of the judges play the game like once. Because they have to go through so many games, so it's usually like a game a day or something.
Yeah, I mean...
So that might not be as big of a knock as we think it is.
Maybe, I don't know.
And I will say this, the games that they say you can only play once, I don't put as much credit to that because, for example, I'd say Time Source definitely falls into that category. But I've played it once with you and when I didn't know anything, then again with my brother and 2 of my friends. And even though I knew everything, I was still fun because I was like, I just was sort of like not trying to give too much away, but I was being like almost just more role playing it a little bit.
That's fair. I do think most people wouldn't have as much fun with that.
Right.
I also would say Time Stories, compare that to something like the Escape Room board game we played. Would you want to play that again? I think
That's fair.
it depends.
I'm just saying I need to experience it to see. So.
Of course, yeah. Time Stories, if it has more of Time Stories has a little more replayability, I'd say. But I don't know. Again, we haven't actually tried in these for ourselves. Raiders sounds really interesting. There was also the other award that I forget, Kennerspiel.
It's for the
kids.
Younger games, yeah.
So you can see what those are. There's a bunch of runner-ups that included some stuff we are more familiar with, like Captain Sonar was on there, the Grizzled. You can see the link below and check out the full list. But I'd be curious to hear if anyone out there has actually had the chance to play some of these and if they think there are any front runners for this year.
I mean, I'm definitely, at least for that one, I'm really curious about Terraforming Mars because I know one of the things that is interesting, because I've seen some videos saying, like, component-wise, some people have been a little, like, in terms of quality, but still they love the game more than others. So I'm like, if it's able to push beyond, like, not just everything looks pretty, like, if one thing's so bad, but everything, I'm really curious to see what it goes. I mean, Exit is almost like a part of the new locked room.
Right.
Thing. So I mean, if a locker room game's gonna win, it's this year. I don't think we're gonna.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's but this is the last time that gimmick will be fresh. Basically, I think that's true. Yeah, it should be interesting, and certainly no matter who wins, all 3 of those nominees for each category are going to become much more well-known. I'm sure we're going to have a chance to try them out.
Oh, I'm sure we're going to do our best to try to play them all so we can actually tell you our opinions on them.
Yeah, that would be nice.
I'm definitely, I feel a bit more excited than last year.
Huh. Well, last year I feel like there were more that we had actually heard of.
Right.
This year, it seems to go like on and off, whether or not I know I'm familiar with the nominees or not. It's like a grab bag, but soon enough we will be. So again, give us your thoughts and find the full list of those games below. We also have a couple of other cool announcements from some pretty cool companies, I think. Starting off with Plaid Hat Games, they announced this new title called Crystal Clans, which is a 2-player head-to-head expandable board game that it looks Summoner Wars-esque in that you have cards sort of as your units on your board. And there were a few little gameplay mechanics that I thought sounded interesting that might make this stand out from the pack. For one, the action system is based on how much you do and your opponent does to determine how much you're going to be able to do. I said that in a bad way. But basically, the more
it looks at what you do and what your opponent does.
The more you do on your turn, the more your opponent is going to be able to do.
Right.
So you may want to hold off because it's going to give them more opportunities.
And it also brings up different strategies. You might want to, your deck style could be to almost stranglehold your opponent by being able to just play one card a turn or something.
Right, so that's...
Or one action a turn, I mean.
Right, that's interesting. Also, there are going to be, at least at the start, 6 different clans that you can attempt to choose from with their own abilities and powers,
so
of course.
By expandable, you meant like they could release new...
As just like Ashes.
So they made Summoner Wars.
Correct.
So I'm just curious, is this same universe?
As far as I know, it's an entirely new...
Designers, or do you know?
I'm pretty sure it's not related to that at all.
I think that Summoner Wars they stopped in terms of new stuff. So
right.
I was just curious.
No, I think you're right, but I don't think other than the publisher, I don't think the designers from that. I could be wrong. Certainly, it's not the same universe, or the art style is very different. Some other things the game has, it's got. You can group your units together in squads and move them together as
banding.
one, which is neat. There's also the thing that I usually like where cards have different sort of options you can use them as. So you can use it either as a unit or as a battle card during kind of combat encounters. So there's versatility in that regard. And as we said, I think the art style looks really neat. It's very colorful. Basically, the goal of the game is first person to get 4 of these crystals, and the crystals are cards that have more ability. Once you get it, you get to do something. One of them was look at your opponent's hand and make them get rid of a card or something like that. And they give you points. You're also doing victory points. So, I mean, Plaid Hat, as we said, has done this expandable board card game thing before and been pretty successful at it. I know you're a big fan of Ashes, which is still going. So I'm looking forward to this. I think they know what they're doing at this point. This seems to be their forte.
I mean, yeah. I mean, if you like the sort of tactical, I'd say it falls almost like a tactical war game, kind of. Definitely something worth to keep an eye out for.
Yeah, with a little. This one seems a little more to have more of those actions that are a little more on the take that side. So a little less like strictly strategic, and a little on the goofier side. Not like Munchkin, but just a little towards that edge of things, which is maybe a little more up my alley, I think, personally. So I'm looking forward to maybe a slightly lighter way.
Jonathan only likes board games if they come with Groucho Marx glasses.
I really think more should. There's very few that do. And then the last thing, this is a pretty cool announcement that you caught wind of.
Right, yeah. Devil Pigs, who makes the Heroes of Normandy and Shadows of Normandy game. If you don't know, Shadows of Normandy actually is a team up with the Shadows of Cthulhu.
Right.
They have teamed up again, and this time with
Games Workshop.
Thank you. With Warhammer and the Heroes of Black Reach. Now, this is interesting because we know a little while ago we reported about the new Warhammer like rules and stuff bringing out.
Right.
And I think this is actually another step in that direction to sort of mix the markets, because Heroes of Normandy, if you don't know, is like a war game, but not with miniatures. It comes with little cardboard pieces on a board, more scenarios, and as far as I know, most of it is in packs. In terms of like, you just buy the box. You don't buy like your soldier troops. I had a couple of them are like that, but mostly it's in board expansion. It's not nearly like what I think you'd expect from the miniatures game.
It's not X-Wing or even more so Warhammer, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think this is sort of a way to sort of bridge the two groups together and maybe even tell more stories of the Warhammer universe.
Yeah, essentially you think Games Workshop is trying to really broaden their reach with Warhammer and get the people who aren't necessarily the hardcore miniatures players
right,
involved.
Because I know there's been video games, and I know plenty of people have loved them. I mean, I've seen people post images from it all the time, joking around. So this would be a good way to get them, and especially if they can't paint, or they don't have the funds to make some of those large armies. I mean, you've seen some amazing collections, you know.
Yeah. I don't know if they said. I'm assuming this is going to be Kickstarter. 'Cause I think that's how they do most of these, right?
They do sort of a weird mix.
So I'm not sure. You have to check the details to see if that was announced or not. But yeah, I mean, if you like those Heroes of Normandy games and you want a cool new theme for it.
Plus, with Heroes of Normandy, they probably like, we've done everything in World War II. What else can we do?
we can only go. So we can't invent more battles. We have to stick to this somewhat to historical accuracies for that one. There was one more announcement that I don't have a slide for, but pretty major. They announced the Rick and Morty Munchkin.
Oh man!
For that. I think we've officially now hit the threshold of I'm tired of Rick and Morty board games.
No, you know we have to make one for every episode.
Right, Cryptozoic will work on that. Yeah, but I don't know. Hey, it was inevitable, I guess, and that's of course going to be a USA-opoly. There's so many different like companies involved in that because like Cryptozoic.
Well, it's actually the same thing as Adventure Time, because Cryptozoic had Adventure Time.
Right, and then it's
Monopoly.
Munchkin is Steve Jackson, but USAopoly is publishing those Munchkin versions. That's such a weird hodgepodge of legal issues.
I can't wait until Cryptozoic does a board game about the first episode, where everyone has to hide the seed.
Let's not go there. Instead, let's go to the world of Kickstarter Pickstarter. And we're going to start with one from you and a company that we know and love, Everything Epic Games, right? With this new game, Metal Dawn.
Yes, the game Metal Dawn, a satellite called Dominus, was launched in orbit and activated and it got sentience and decided, you know what? In order to save all humans, I need to kill him. You know, the classic robot going evil.
What's this game about, though?
It's a cooperative.
Okay, yeah.
When you are each, like, it's almost like, I think there's a game, but you're all like part of secret agents who've been activated to stop the robots. Okay. So to stop them from going to DC, what you have to do is there's different territories. You have to make sure they don't get overrun, sort of like Dead of Winter.
Okay.
You also got to collect, special equipment. You got to get the code to hack Dominus and bring him down to Earth so you can kill him. Because
okay, makes sense.
And you got 24 hours to do it before he officially takes over the world. So
it's played in real time?
No. Oh god. I hope not. I mean, I really love their last game, Secret of the Lost Tomb. Mm-hmm. And so I'm really excited about this. It sounds really fun. If you back it at the deluxe level, which is, I believe, $85, there actually comes with not only a whole bunch of fun new toys to play with, cards, enemies, so forth. There actually is rules for a competitive, territory capturing mode. So you can actually get not just co-op, but you can also get a competitive game in there as well.
That's cool. I like that. Robots seem to be the thing now on Kickstarter after Aegis. Does that think maybe that's a new trend? Robots? I guess it already was kind of a thing.
Everything just moves up and down. Buy stock in robots.
Yeah, but no, they are a great company, and the art and theme of this looks really, really neat. For some reason, it reminded me of. It's really not like that, but sort of like the video game Soma. Like it seems to have more of like a frightening feel to it. Maybe because I'm afraid of robots.
Well, no, there recently I think has been a lot more like evilish robots, and it's not. And I think part of it is.
Prey, isn't Prey like that? Or no?
Yes and not really. I'm going to say no. It's no,
okay.
Technically, but there are some evil robots in it.
Okay.
But I think part of it is there's a design aspect I've noticed recently. Like before the recent trend of like you said, like Soma, I feel like the robots were like Terminator, like almost human, but not even past the uncanny valley. But this time they've almost pulled them back a bit. Like they're almost like if you look at the picture, it's like a square head with the red eye. It's more. Reminds me more of HAL, which is almost scarier because it's like it's not as much that they're killing you. It's because they were given control of whatever your life control systems were. I think that's why it reminds you. And it's a little bit scarier. Yeah, well, if you want to be afraid of robots or not, check out this game. It's $60 for the base, or as you said, $85 for that deluxe version, probably. And I think as of this recording, there's still some early bird for the deluxe out. So get on that quickly if you can. My Kickstarter that I'm going to talk about is called Hang 12.
which I thought was interesting. I don't know if you saw this. It's from Grail Games. They're the people who did like 101. They do all those little games on Kickstarter. And this one is a fun kind of party game that will probably you've probably played games like this. Basically,
Crazy Eights.
Yeah, exactly. Basically, one person, everybody has a different island, which determines how you're going to get questions. There's question cards, and all the questions are going to be either true or false, or choice A or choice B, one of two answers. And on your turn, you'll have one of those questions, and you'll secretly put down which answer you choose. And everyone else is going to try to guess what you're going to pick. So it's sort of in the vein of something I would say like Wits and Wagers, or even like a...
what was that one game?
Jackbox Party kind of a game.
It's from, I think, North Star. Like we did, it has the whiteboard.
Say Anything?
Yeah.
Yeah. One of those kinds of things where you're fun with a group. Especially, it sounds like what's different about this one is you want some people in there who actually don't know you as well. Like one of their examples was, does this person, like it was like, I am an only child, true or false? It's like, well, if you're all friends, like that's boring. Everyone's gonna know what they're gonna say. You kind of want like, oh, the couple people who maybe might not know about that. So I think it's highly dependent on how entertaining some of these questions are.
No, I mean those games usually are, and that's why, but I do love them if they do it right. Like, I was really excited to remember when we talked about, I forget, it's called Acorn, I think? When we were at the PC.
Oh, no, you're talking about That's a Question?
Yeah.
The Vlada game that uses acorns.
Right. Yeah. That's why I was...
Yeah, it is kind of, it is a little bit like that, yeah. And if you're wondering, it's called Hang 12 because there's a surfing theme that seems to not matter at all. I don't know why it has a surfing theme.
But isn't it Hang 10?
Yeah, well, this is different. It's you hang 2 more. That's how much better it is.
Oh, we're different. We're alien species with 12 fingers.
So if you're looking for a kind of a fun party game, know your friends or whatnot, you might want to check that out. It goes for $25, which seems a little. I wish it were a little cheaper. Yeah, right. $1 per each hang. And then finally, this one just quick to mention, there is an expansion for Role Player called Monsters and Minions. Role Player is a game we've talked about in the show that we really enjoyed.
Can you get the base with this?
Yes, you can get the base. It is $39 for each thing, and that's really my big hesitation with this. Is I do feel like $39 for an expansion that requires the base is a little steep.
Well, it depends what comes in it.
Sure, I think it's about components, but I still just feel like on principle, it just seems like a lot. Because if you don't have these games, you're paying $80 plus shipping to get both of these together right now, which is a pretty big game for not like, it's just dice. You're not getting like a big miniatures game. That being said, we did really like Role Player, and I think especially if you do have the original, this one adds sort of an end game where you actually get to fight the monster, a monster, so all the stats you built up throughout the game will matter a little more besides just points. You actually get to kind of put those into action with one combat roll.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, which is pretty cool. So I'm not super happy with the price. They are a small company though, and I will probably end up backing it personally because I do have that base already, and it also adds an extra 5th player.
Oh, nice. that's actually really big.
That's always very nice. So
this probably adds a whole bunch of dice just so you can have that 5th player.
Right. Yeah. There's like different kinds of dice now, as well as more of the standard cards, of course.
Hybrid dice.
Yeah, why not? So check out Role Player. That's on.
I don't actually know if there are hybrid dice in there. That was just me being.
There aren't. You can find all those Kickstarter links below, and let us know if you had a Kickstarter that we didn't talk about, because there were a couple others that I thought looked interesting this week.
Oh yeah, it was a good week.
There was a pirate one. There was something else. So look for those. Now let's dive into the Meeple Gallery. We're just going to take a stroll through. Walk down the aisle.
Meeple Lane.
Joseph Mays, who his ancestors perhaps made corn. I don't know.
No, they made the mall.
They made the Magic Maze Mall. Had an interesting suggestion I didn't think of or maybe we did, I don't remember, about our Firefly big damn crate broken token building video. Seems like it should have a handle for a box that big, that and a latch to keep it closed. I guess you could get one at AC Moore, etc. Interesting. It does. I mean, that is one of the things. It's carrying that thing around.
Well, there actually is, I think, technically like little indents on the side to hold. but it's not like a real handle.
Right, and I mean, you can't carry it around like a briefcase.
I can't
certainly.
I can't really say it because
It would
you have it,
fall
so I haven't had
over.
that much carrying.
It is a big fella. Yeah, if you're planning on taking it a lot of places, it's
Maybe those are some investment.
not a bad
artwork.
idea to maybe go in for that. But I will, yeah, for how heavy it already is, it's almost like, let's just play this game over at my place from now on. I don't want to take this into my trunk. But interesting. I don't think any broken token, or I don't know of any kind of insert things that have a handle. So that'd be interesting to see.
Not usually that you build yourself.
Right.
Because that's a whole other fun thing of just making sure you don't crack the wood and whatnot.
So if there's a company that did that, that'd be kind of cool.
Like I've seen Dominion cases that are literally like a suitcase
Right.
design, but you don't build it. It comes pre-made.
So thanks for that comment. And then we have a couple so far responses to our top 10 favorite games lists.
All right,
that
let's see
we've
how
put
many
out.
people hated my list.
Well, actually, first of all, this is maybe more important. Remember, we also had
No.
our ideas for, we wanted to do a list of games with numbers in them. So Uno's the first one. Raphael's 13. We even mentioned in that same episode, put forward 2 Rooms and a Boom for the second game. So we're going to keep that list building. So keep those coming. He also added simply ... Dino Hunt? Question mark, exclamation point. I think that says it all. He posted his own top 10. I'm not going to read the whole thing. You can look in the comments. But it had some good ones on there that we like. Pictomania. I briefly flirted with putting that on my list. I do like Pictomania. Agricola, another game we love. Descent. Hanabi he had was the only game that was on either of our lists that he had, as well as Seven Wonders. His number 1 was Age of Empires 3, The Age of Discovery. So, okay, cool. Rico Cordova, our old pal, was very surprised by our list. He says, we have very different tastes in games. Smiley face. He said he's only played 8 of the 19 that we listed. This is very mysterious.
19. Oh, because we did share one.
Yes. He said 2 are okay, 2 are dislikes, and 4 I would never play again. But he doesn't say which ones are which. So I want to know. I want to know what those
Obviously,
are.
Dino Hunt's on the good side.
Of course. And then he said he backed Battle for Souls, the reprint, and now he's worried about whether or not he'll like it because
As it's on my list.
based on our taste in games. Nah, don't worry, you'll like it. His top 10 he posted has some good ones on it also. Splendor, Seven Wonders, popular one, Power Grid, Roll for the Galaxy, Puerto Rico. We know why you like that game. And his number 1 was the Manhattan Project. So a bunch. I would love more people need to post their top 10 because I'm very curious to hear about it. But interesting to see what people are liking. I'm not seeing anything crazy. It seems like everyone's posting some solid games so far that I can see. As opposed to our list, which unanimously have been derided by all.
No, they're just choosing what's popular. Our lists are actually.
Yeah.
Well, my list is unique. Yours.
You're a real original. Finally, we'll close out our show with what we've been playing lately, which is some pretty good stuff, I think. Last week we played Argent, the Consortium, which we have played before from level 99. This takes place in their universe, which probably has a name.
It's the same one as their Devastation.
Yeah, the BattleCon Indians universe.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Something like along those lines. If you don't know what this is, we always say it's like Harry Potter, but with, I guess we just say it's like Harry Potter.
It's pretty much Harry Potter, but instead of when the headmaster leaves, someone just gets it, there's a battle for who gets it. So you're pretty much playing as different teachers trying to become the next headmaster.
Yeah, so pretty cool worker placement game. It is a lot of fun. We had to kind of relearn the rules, and we had someone new playing with us. But I certainly enjoyed myself.
No, it's a lot of fun. The big thing is, and this is where it's hard for us, one of the reasons we have to relearn because there are so many variants, and some of those variant cards made it into the game without us knowing. We're like, oh crap, we got to switch this up.
Yeah, there were a couple little rules hiccups in that regard, but we moved over them pretty easily.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's also a game that's actually I was pretty happy because if there is a runaway leader, which I think is hard to do, you don't know about it usually.
I'm almost always for a game that keeps that hidden.
Yeah.
That's why we like it when the game comes with one of those hidden little
shields.
Because I feel like that makes the game a lot more interesting, and usually you're not like halfway through the game you're like, well, I'm not going to give a shit anymore.
And the other interesting thing with this is, you're competing for different categories, but you don't know what they are necessarily. But as one of your actions, you can look at one of them. And personally, I really underestimated the importance of that in this particular game. There were a couple that I was like, oh, if I had I made a couple decisions towards the end that if I had done one thing different, I would have gotten a card.
Right. Well, it becomes even funnier because sometimes I remember the first one I looked at was whoever had the most in this kind of class. There's like 5 classes. And when I looked at it, the turn before, Garrett had already bought 3 people from that class.
Yeah.
So I was already just like, I'm not getting this.
Yeah, mine was, I knew one would be awarded to whoever had the most treasures. And in the final round, I had 3 cards. I was going to get 2 of them. I had to give 1 to Garrett. 1 was a treasure. The other 2 were consumables. So I was like, I'm taking this treasure, not realizing there was another award for consumables. And had I just taken one of those consumables, I probably would have gotten both awards instead of just giving Garrett the other one.
No, it's a lot.
Yeah, so but pretty cool game, and it's definitely on the heavier side.
No, it's absolutely, well, because
definitely on the analysis paralysis side.
If it anything that has so many different variants, I think usually falls into the heavy side with maybe some weird exceptions.
But check that out if you like level 99 games. They always make good games. And this one was pretty cool. This was a Kickstarter that was a Pickstarter on the show, and I received Mars 445. Wasn't sure really what to expect from this game. I didn't have big expectations going in. Sort of almost just backed it on a whim because it was cheap. But it's a real-time, everyone's playing simultaneously, so I guess I would say simultaneous play game. You're putting down different colors and numbers into the middle of the table, and
you're capturing tricks in different colors. And once you get a certain number of different tricks, like 3 of the orange, 2 of the green, 1 blue, 1 red, you can say lift off.
Well, first there's a launch card that takes the pile for you.
Well, that's always the end of the trick for each color.
Oh yeah, I guess. I don't know. Is it still a trick if it's not? Because the round is still continuing.
Well, I assume isn't trick usually like a group of 1, 2, 3 cards and stuff? I assume that's what
I don't know, maybe. I don't know. At any rate, I'm just getting confused with terminology. But yeah, but you can play off each other's pile. So I might put down a blue 1, and you might have a blue 2, and then the third player might have, if that's the correct number, a launch card, and they actually get the points from that pile.
Right, so you'll start also just waiting. You'll see you have the blue, a blue 2 out to play, but then you see in your opponent's ready area the launch 3, and you're just like, I'm not playing that.
Right. So yeah, you don't want to help each other too much, but you're also punished if you don't help each other at all. You may lose points for having too many of your opponent's color cards in your end score zone. Because
you get sabotaged, unless you only have your opponent's cards, therefore you're mastermind.
Yeah, you get double points. That's almost impossible to pull off.
It's shooting the moon, I think it's called.
Right, yeah, not in this game, but in general,
right.
Yeah. But I think I found that we all really enjoyed it, I think more than I thought we might have just from reading the rules. I think it's a game that's very hard to really explain what it feels like until you have played a round of it.
No, it was a lot of fun. It was this sort of chaotic, just slamming cards down and just grabbing and looking, just trying to plan out.
Yeah.
And we played with 3. I would love to do it with 4, because then it's gonna be crazy.
Yeah. And if you have a second set, you actually can do up to 6, I believe. So that's even crazier. My chief concern with the game was because you're really quickly going through piles of cards and slamming them down and grabbing them before other people can. You probably want to sleeve these cards, but as I said while we were playing, you'd have to get some quality sleeves, I feel, because part of it is really that tactile sensation of feeling the right number of cards and knowing where to put them. And I'm worried that sleeves would make it a little more slippery and not as easy to quickly slam them where you need to.
You'll
slam
have to look
them.
up your sleeve.
Yeah, so that's my kind of concern. But as a game itself, surprisingly really fun. We tried to look up why it's called 0445, and I'm still not sure what that represents. If you know what that is, let us know. I'm not sure how readily available this game is right now because it was a Kickstarter. And finally, we did one that we alluded to a couple weeks ago. We decided to dive into it because we never had. Shadowrun Crossfire.
Right. Even though there is a campaign, we just did sort of a standalone, the quick start.
Yeah, the like basic game included in the book, which we later learned is pretty hard, and online you can find an even more beginner scenario that we didn't do. So yeah, as you said, no experience points or anything like that, just going into it vanilla. And it definitely, it did not, we all remarked, it doesn't feel like a traditional deck building game, really. It's
no, because usually when you play deck building game, you're buying every turn or something. That wasn't really the case, I feel.
There's two big things in this. Number one, when you do buy a card, it's going directly into your hand. So I loved that because that really, it made it feel much more strategic, and you're really planning about what to do in your next turns.
Well, it made weaker cards stronger because you can be like, I need just that one more power.
Right, for sure. And then the other thing is you don't have cards dedicated to money of any kind. The resources for money are split among everyone based on completing obstacles, and they're a separate token, so your deck is, I feel, much more streamlined. You're really only doing one thing. You don't have to worry about money cluttering it.
The other big issue what comes across is these obstacles get pretty big and hard pretty fast.
Yeah.
And instead of being able to just, I'll just buy enough so I can kill it, you really have to all work together to deal with these things.
Cooperation is definitely important. We made a little mistake where we had too many of the basic cards still shuffled into the main black market deck. So I think that skewed it a little bit to make it harder for us.
But we still made it to near the end.
Yeah, we got pretty close.
We got this one card came out that made us discard our hands for the final round, where we both had our god hands.
Yeah, it was sad. It was a real shame.
Like at first, after we lost, I was just like, really, did we lose? But now that I know that you're supposed to you actually get experience even if you lose, or what they call you.
I don't know what their word for experience is.
You hop out. No, like when you you leave the mission and you're supposed to sort of grind it. I didn't feel as bad about the loss because it then felt more like a game. I just pushed as far as we could, and I would say we did pretty well. I don't even feel the need, I want to do the beginner one. I'm fine if we did the campaign and just kept losing and then getting stickers and stuff.
No, yeah, I'm with you. That campaign thing seems pretty cool, and having your own personalized race and class and deck for you and all that stuff is pretty cool.
How do you feel now knowing that this system is going to be used for the Dungeons and Dragons one?
I think it's perfect. I'm actually super excited. I'm really happy that they chose to do that. I think it could work with almost any RPG system. We have not played the Pathfinder adventure card game. I don't think you have. But I did play the Warhammer adventure game once when it came out at Gen Con, and I feel like, from what I've heard, those have that has a similar feel. I think Pathfinder does as well, where you're all working together and attacking monsters to complete quests, and it is a really nice adaptation of the RPG to a card game space.
And because even though you lose an encounter, but you go back and gain experience, it does get more of that. From what we could tell online, those stickers really matter. Yeah. Which is nice because it makes it's not a deck building game that borrows from RPG. It feels more like you really need that RPG leveling up abilities, and then you have your deck building is really just you being like, I attack with a sword or something. It's not nearly as.
Yeah. And it was really fun, hashing out with each other. All right, what cards do you have? Is it possible to complete this on your turn?
It really, because the way you actually fight enemies is not just 6 damage done, like a lot of the other deck building games we play. You have to first, it needs a green symbol, then it needs a 2 of anything, then a red, then a blue. So we'd have to be like, okay, well, I'm going to hit it with the green first, then the 2. Then you can do this, then you can...
Yeah, very puzzly, very satisfying when we were able to pull off those combos in turn with each other.
No, it actually reminded me almost like and the way the cooperative, because some cards had abilities that did something special if you helped on, you could add to your friends' turns. The cooperative from the Encounters deck building game of Legendary. But I think it's almost better because of that. And it became really scary because I got something called the God Wire. which was this enemy that healed 2 levels every time it attacked me. So we had to be like, okay, we need to like nuke this thing. We can't slowly chip at it.
Yeah, it was really fun figuring it out.
Yeah, and when we did, we're like, we have a way. We all of a sudden just did this awesome like
the stars aligned.
Yeah, it was really. It made you feel. I felt much more accomplished. You know what? Actually, I think would be an amazing property for this. Dark Souls. I think it could easily fit that sort of. I mean, I felt like we were on the ropes almost. After the first round, we were on the ropes. Our line really required us to.
Yeah, and I did feel that that difficulty escalation scale felt very balanced based on there's this like Crossfire level system with your discard card pile from events that come out. It felt like a very natural progression from, okay, we're pretty good, okay, it's a little harder, oh my god, it's really hard.
And also, what's also nice about it is it makes it so you can't just be like, all right, let's just keep defending and turtle.
Yeah,
you gotta move.
For sure, you can't just grind it out until you have the perfect hand or something like that. So if you haven't tried Shadowrun Crossfire already, check it out. Also, we are not as familiar with the Shadowrun universe, so it was really cool seeing some of these monsters and stuff for the first time.
Right, we're definitely curious if you know, like, the Godwire, if there's some lore behind it, you know.
Yeah, give us that talk. If you like Shadowrun Crossfire, you could let us know. We'd love to hear about it or any of these other games. Or if you have a thought about the Spiel des Jahres nominees or more top 10 lists that you want to give us, leave a comment here on this video. We'd love to read it.
Or if our top 10 lists even scare you more to watch us. We're, as you said right below, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like. But also we're on Twitter @RollForCrit, Instagram, Facebook, hiding in the shadows.
Yeah, and you mentioned a Dark Souls property. There is a Dark Souls board game officially for sale now. You can get it on our website, rollforcrit.com, along with several other, in fact, I'm going to say hundreds of other games and expansions.
Including many of the ones some of the ones we talked about today, or at least their predecessors.
Yes, so certainly you want to check that out, plus more videos and all that kind of stuff like this. If it's not on our channel right now, I'm certain it will be very soon, but we've got Hive playback for the game Hive, as well as a how to play, and another smaller review of an independent card game that we're going to be putting out. So look for that stuff on our channel. Always exciting things there.
Yes, but until then, I'm Spiel des Jahres nominee Will Keeler.
And I'm Kenner Spiel des Jahres nominee, because I'm a little tougher to figure out, Jonathan Estes. And this has been the Roll for Crit podcast.